This is the Game or Die podcast. You can find us online at gameordie.net. I am your host, Ryan Moore. So, for today's episode, I'm going to be talking about driving games. Since I've been playing Dangerous Driving, and I'm still having a very difficult time waiting for that new patch to come out, I replayed some of the Burnout series and a couple other racing games just because I forgot how much I really like driving games. But it's a certain specific type of driving game that I'm actually attracted to. I don't like the more nuanced simulation style of driving. Those just kind of bore me. I think it's just because it's so in-depth into the mechanics of a car that you kind of get overburdened with all the different types of dimensions and settings and all this stuff that you can create with a car and tweak, that you spend more times in the menus than you do with the actual game. Also, one of the reasons why I like the Burnout series is because of that sense of speed. You don't get that with the more simulation types of games like Gran Turismo or the Forza Motorsport series. So for me, I actually like the more crazy fast, hyper-realistic style of racing. So, the first thing that I'm going to talk about is the game that I just finally completed, I think for the first time. I don't remember if I ever actually finished the game, but since I had to put Dangerous Driving down until it gets patched, I went back to Burnout Revenge. This is the fourth game in the Burnout series. This came out on the original Xbox, and then also came out on the 360 several months later after the 360 launched. So first gen Xbox, early launch window of the 360. And man, I had a blast with this game. And this is why I remember why I love the Burnout series so much, is because you're driving around and you have this crazy sense of speed because of the sound effects that this game has. And this is what's missing. And I finally kind of nailed it down. This is what's missing from the Dangerous Driving series, is not just polish, but effects, sound effects. Dangerous Driving is really good at the sense of speed, but you kind of only get the fisheye lens effect from that game. When you play the original Burnout games, you don't just get the fisheye lens when you're doing burnouts, when you're using your boost. You also get the sound effects of cars whizzing by you at crazy high speeds. And that is what makes, or again, it kind of all blends together in this perfect amalgamation of sound effects and lighting effects and fisheye angles and boost and cars crunching and braking. You don't get that with the Burnout game, or you don't get that with Dangerous Driving, but you get that with Burnout. So when you are driving through a highway and traffic is coming right at you, and the cars are whizzing by at crazy speeds, you hear that vroom, vroom, the Doppler effect of these cars flying by you at, 300 plus miles per hour at that point, because they're going in a direction and you're going in the opposite direction. So it's not just your speed, it's your speed plus the speed of the car coming at you as well. And it is so white knuckle racing. It is intense. There was so many times that I was playing this game, even late at night, and I'm holding my breath throughout the race, taking shallow, quick breaths so that I can get back into the game. And once I finish that race, and I'm usually hitting first place, I let out a big, I can finally breathe, because this game is so intense. It takes all your concentration just to be able to maneuver around, avoid crashes, take down other characters or enemies or other racers, and also find shortcuts. It is such a good game that, as much as I like Burnout 3 Takedown, as much as I think it has the best video game commercial of all time, going back to Burnout Revenge on the 360, playing it backwards compatible with an Xbox One X, oh my gosh, I think this is my favorite Burnout game of all time now. Because I went back to Burnout 3, and it has all that stuff. It's just a little bit lower, a little bit less technically advanced, a little bit less impressive compared to the 360 version of Burnout Revenge. And it kind of bums me out to say that, but it also kind of makes me happy, because after going back through it and playing it again, I realized how much fun I had with the Burnout series, and I rediscovered that series thanks to Dangerous Driving coming out again, and then the backwards compatible version of Burnout Revenge, which actually came out last year. And I played it when it came out. I bought it digitally because I actually had the disc in my hand when I was like, oh, should I just play the disc version or should I get it digitally? And I was moving my Xbox around the house, and so I didn't want to, and I was swapping out games and stuff, and I was just like, I don't want to deal with that. I want to go digital. It's only $5, I think it was, too. So I bought it digitally, and I played a little bit of it, and I was like, yeah, this is Burnout. I'm having fun, but, I think at that time I was playing a couple other games, and so I didn't want to get into a racing game, because for me, I have to be in the mood for a racing game. I cannot just load a racing game up and just start in it, because especially with the Burnout series, there's kind of a little bit of a narrative to those games, a very, very small amount, but it's there. And so I played a little bit of it, and I was just blown away by how much fun I was having. Just a huge smile on my face the entire time I was playing this game, racing, having the cars whiz past me, crashing people. And I didn't even get to what I thought my favorite part of those games were, which was crash mode. When Danger Zone and Danger Zone 2 came out the last couple of years, when Three Fields was trying to recreate crash mode in an entire full game, budget full game, but I was excited because that's always been my favorite. That's always been my go-to for talking about the Burnout series, saying, yeah, Burnout's a racing game, but there's the crash mode. Crash mode is the crazy cool part of the Burnout series. And I didn't even play most of it because with crash mode, it takes a long time to get into. First, you have to load up the crash mode, or the race for crash mode. Then you have to pick a car, and you have to figure out, do I want a faster car or a slower car? Slower cars have bigger crash breakers, so you get more of an explosion, which you need to use. But faster cars allow you to fly through the air faster using jumps, which, again, later in the game, you need to kind of assess the crash intersection where you're going to be crashing. So you also have to fly through the crash zone and find out what the best way is. Then it zooms all the way back, and then you pick your car, and then you start the race, then it counts down, and then you're actually going. Once you crash, it takes a long time because it has to calculate all the different cars, and, you have to wait a lot. You might get several crash breakers. You blow up. You use your aftertouch to move around to a different location. Use your crash breaker again if you have it, and be able to get gold, hopefully. But most of the time, first time out, you're not getting that. So you have to reset and redo all the exact same thing. The score has to total up. Then you have to click retry. Then it takes that camera where your car is and then zooms back all the way to the start point. And then you have to pick your car again. And then you have to wait for the countdown. And it's just a hassle with crash mode. And I totally forgot how long it took for such a long period of time with not playing these games. Like, that didn't matter to me back then, but now it does, where I'm like, oh, it's 1 o'clock in the morning, my wife's asleep and I should probably go to bed. I've got work in the morning or whatever. I got to do something. So I should probably get to bed soon, but one more crash race. And that crash race, if you want to get gold, might take you several retries. And those several retries might take more than a minute or two to reset up and, try and figure out where you're going to go. So it just takes a long time. And I didn't find myself having as much fun with it as Road Rage. Road Rage and Eliminator, Crash Breaker Eliminator, all these different events in the game itself, which are races, are where the joy that I found in these games. With Road Rage, you basically are just doing a normal race, but there's no laps. There's no certain amount of laps. There's no, you don't have to get in a certain place. You just have to take down as many cars as you possibly can. So taking down the cars is, again, depending on the type of car, it might be super easy or super hard. If you have a heavier vehicle, you're not going to go as fast. Your boost isn't going to be as fast either. So it might be harder to catch up, but you have much a higher buildup to your damage. So you don't crash as often unless you're running directly into oncoming traffic or a wall. But you have... you are able to take out other players much more easily by just getting alongside them and slamming against them. They'll go flying if you have a super heavy car. If you have a lighter car, you're much faster. But going to the side and trying to knock them over is going to be a lot harder. That's where you got to start learning some strategic moves. You have to go, okay, well, if I have a lighter car, maybe I can boost into their bumper at an angle and knock them into incoming traffic or a sharp curve or something like that. So there's some strategic points that you have to consider while playing Road Rage. And then you have like Eliminator, which is basically you are trying to not be the last person every X amount of time, 30 seconds, a minute, whatever it is. A countdown timer will start. And at the end of that timer, if you are in the last place, your car blows up and you lose. So you immediately you start out with 6 characters or 6 racers, and you have to be not in last place. Once that last place gets blown up, it gets eliminated until there's only 2 cars left. Then the timer goes down again. The second place character blows up, and then if you are in first, you win. So it's a really cool game, and it's got a lot of different modes in it. Normal races, time attack, and then they also have a traffic attack as well, which I believe is new to the series. And this is where you are able to shunt or run into the same way of traffic cars, and you don't crash, which is cool because they actually don't have that in dangerous driving, and I totally forgot about this. So you are able to run into the back of cars and run them into either oncoming traffic or other larger vehicles like buses or big rigs and kind of get them out of the way without crashing. And then you can also use those cars to your advantage while in races as well. If they're going the same way, you can, if there's a car in front of you, a racer in front of you, and you're in like second place and he's in first, you can get up behind a car that's going in the same direction you are going, push them into that other racer and cause them to crash. Or you can use it as slingshotting it into the oncoming traffic, and then a huge oncoming traffic bus crashes and then runs into the other road, which is the lane that you're in and the other racer's in. And so it's a really cool, different way of playing these games, and just so many different tracks and it's just, there's so much fun in that game. Like that game, if you bundled it up and had to rename it, you can just call it Fun the Game, because it is so fun. There's so many different aspects where it's, like I said, white knuckle racing. You are gripping your controller as tight as you possibly can throughout the race because you are going so fast, and you get that sense of speed, not just from the fisheye effect of using the boost, but also the motion blurring, the sound effects of the cars, the soundtrack of the actual game itself too. Man, the soundtrack is amazing. You have CKY as one of that's in the game as a soundtrack, or one of the tracks in the game, which is probably, especially at that time, one of my favorite bands. I loved that band when I was younger, and when I found out that they were in the soundtrack of Burnout, is like one of my favorite bands, one of my favorite game series. It just meshes together so well, that gripping, just hard, gritty garage band type of guitar with those riffs, and it just kind of like semi-metal, semi-rock. It blends together so perfectly. They also have a lot of punk rock soundtrack music as well in the game, but there's something about that series where you listen to that stuff and it's just so good. Everything meshes together like a perfect meal where everything complements everything else. Nothing feels odd, nothing feels weird, nothing feels different in that game. And that's why I think it's topped my favorite in the Burnout series at this point. So, with that being said, I'm going to play a little track from one of the soundtracks here for the Burnout series, because I want you guys to just imagine playing this game and this song comes on and you are just like, oh man, this is great. You know, you're flying through, you're in second place and you're trying to get into first, and first place is just a little bit too much ahead of you to where you can't boost forward anymore. You lost your boost and you're in the other oncoming lane trying to regain some of your boost, and cars are whizzing past you or trying not to crash, and this music is in the background. Just think about that. And if you don't have the game, go buy it. Go buy it on Xbox One digital store or whatever. Like I said, I think it's like $5. And play this game, even though there's a lot of what plagued a lot of 360 games, which bums me out. Bloom is one of the worst features that has happened in video games. I remember when the 360 came out, I was like, why is everything so shiny? Why is like this yellow blinding, like staring into the sun? And I remember doing a lot of research and figuring out it was an effect called bloom. And with consoles, you can't turn on and off effects like you can with PC gaming. So I was really bummed out to find that most games you couldn't turn bloom off, or motion blurring for that fact. But even though those effects are on this game, and it does make the game a lot harder to actually see the clarity of it, especially when it's up-resed into 4K resolution, play this game. I guarantee you will not be bummed out by wasting or spending $5 on it. So with that, I'm going to play a little selection from one of the Burnout soundtracks. So after Burnout Revenge, I went to the next logical step in playing the Burnout games, which was Burnout Paradise City. Now, this was the last Burnout game that came out, and I totally see why, because it's so different than what the Burnout games were and what I perceived them to be. A lot of people like this series, or not even the series, this game. A lot of people love Burnout Paradise City. They will say, hands down, Paradise City is the best of the Burnout games. And I'm going to completely disagree, because there's a lot of stuff that it changes from Burnout 1, 2, 3, 4, and then Paradise City. First of all, Paradise City was a game that completely changed what the whole reason of what Burnout was, which was a racing game. They changed it into a open world game, which on its face sounds cool. I remember when Burnout Paradise City was coming out in 2008, and I was stoked. I remember it because I just moved to Denver, and I was alone, and I wanted to play this game, and I was so excited about it. But when Paradise City came out, I remember opening it up, throwing it in my 360, playing it, and Paradise City by Guns N' Roses starts playing. And immediately I was like, ugh. Like, as much as I like Guns N' Roses, as much as I loved Paradise City in high school, wow, could you be more on the nose? Could you have picked a song that was just so cliche at that point? Even brand new game, and the title of your game is called this, is basically using the same title as a very famous rock band song, and you use it it's like wearing the t-shirt of the band to the concert, right? That's what it felt like to me. And so I was just immediately kind of like wincing and kind of ashamed. I was like, that kind of sucks. Like I said, I liked Paradise City, but when you load up that game every single time and have to listen to about the first minute and a half of Paradise City every time you load up that game, it starts wearing on you. It doesn't become clever or cute or funny. It just becomes grating and boring, and it makes you hate that song. I don't hate Paradise City. It's just I've heard it so many times throughout my life that I don't want to have anything to do with it. So Paradise City comes on, and you have to go through this whole listening to what's new about the game, and DJ Atomica coming back, and this lady telling you how to play Burnout, and this pre-rendered cutscene that lasts what seems like an eternity. I think it's about 2 to 3 minutes, but still, it's something that I've gone back and played this game so many times over the years on different platforms, on PC, and then the 360 with a new save game on PS3, and then with a remaster as well. I've played the beginning of this game so many times, and it's an unskippable cutscene. And the load times take forever when you get into a car to swap out a car. The whole game, the aesthetic of the game is nice, but everything around what the game actually is just kind of a pain in the butt. Just like I was talking about with Burnout Revenge with Crash Mode, where you're waiting. Oh my gosh, this game should be called Waiting the Game, because you are waiting and waiting and waiting for everything to happen in this game, for everything to load up, for people to stop telling you how to play the game. That's the 5th in the series at this point. If you are picking up Paradise City, you've played the other Burnout games. You know how a takedown works. You know how races work. And so it grates on you really, really quickly. So when this game got re-released last year, they did a remaster, and I was like, why? I already own it on PC. It's already up-res to 4K already internally. But I guess they went back and redid some of the textures and stuff like that. And I got it for $5 because I already owned the previous version, and it has the DLC that you couldn't get anymore on PC. You can't rebuy any of the DLC. So this is a good way for EA to nickel and dime you by taking the things away that you could buy and repackaging them in a bigger package for you to buy now and to own this. So I paid the $5. I said, whatever, it's $5. And I got it. And I loaded it up a few nights ago after I beat Burnout Revenge. And I was like, I want to continue on with this Burnout thing. I remember hating Burnout Revenge when it came out in 2008. I remember not really caring for it when I replayed it several years ago for an hour or two, just kind of to refresh why I hated it. And so I loaded it back up a few nights ago, got into it, groaned at the Paradise City Guns N' Roses song, and started driving around Paradise City, and I went, oh yeah, I remember exactly why I hate this game. It's a Burnout game, and it looks really nice. That's the best thing that I can say about this game is Paradise City looks really, really nice. It does have this weird hue over it, this color of a very green-blue color tint or a hue to the entire visual aspect of the game, which is a little off-putting because it just kind of obscures a lot of the race and just makes the game look weird. Just like with Burnout Revenge, that had bloom in it. This has a weird post effect that you can't get rid of in this game, and it just kind of bothers me. It might not bother most people, but for me, it does bother me just a little bit, just enough to go, ugh. Can't I have a clear picture? Why is everything tinted green? Why is everything tinted blue? So, loading up the game, you are taken to the junkyard, and DJ Atomica, who I love when they use Stryker or DJ Atomica or Laszlo in the Grand Theft Auto games, because they're familiar voices, they have a lot of personality, and it's just fun to listen to someone come on the radio and kind of break up the monotony of gameplay with some dialogue. So I love when they do this, but oh my gosh, just let me get into the game. Don't sit there and tell me how to start up a car. I know. So DJ Atomica talks to you about, all right, this is the junkyard. When you crash, you're going to have to take your car to the junkyard to fix it up. And we're giving you a car here, and this is what the car does, and this is how you turn it on. All right, let's get started. And turn the key to ignition, and it's just, this is back in the time when tutorials were overdone. There is a necessity for tutorials, and maybe I'll write an article about this at some point. But tutorials are a good thing in video games. It has to be done with some common sense rules in place already. Assuming that your player has already picked up a controller once in their lives. You don't have to go through every little minutia. You don't have to do a 15-second spiel on what the A button does to jump or boost in this case. You don't have to tell me if you press the right trigger, that will accelerate the car. All of these things, like the first 10 bullet points of a tutorial are usually found out within 2 seconds of gameplay. Holding a controller, and people will push all the buttons and they will figure it out themselves. That's not what tutorials need to do. Tutorials need to tell you about the special abilities in games. I think, what was it? Celeste, that came out last year in 2018 at the beginning. I think it was in January of 2018. It had a decent tutorial because it assumed you've played a platformer before. And it didn't go through like, this is how you jump. It told you, hey, this is how you double jump. This is how you dash. Things that you wouldn't be instantly understanding of when picking up the controller and actually help you along. Also, you don't need to do it at the very, very, very beginning of the game. Draw it out throughout the beginning portion of the game. When a new mechanic gets introduced, That's when you tell your players, hey, this is what this button does. This is why you would want to use it. And here's a couple examples of when you want to use it and how to use it properly. You don't want to have your player be given so much information. This is, again, what a lot of companies do when creating tutorial levels, is they'll give you all the information up front to where you're overloaded and overburdened with information to the point that you don't remember anything that they told you. So it becomes futile to tell us all this information because, and I can't remember what game it was, but this is a clear case of a tutorial getting in the way of itself, defeating its own purpose. Because I was playing a game, and there was you start out and it goes through the overblown tutorial. This is push forward to walk, push backwards to walk backwards, push left to go left, push right to go right. Again, all this stuff is found out immediately after picking up the controller without needing to have a tutorial about it. And so you're just pushing A through all this stuff, and you're like, I know. Please shut up. Let me get into the game. Tell me the important stuff. Don't tell me this is how you breathe. You know, like, no one needs to be told a tutorial on how to breathe. You just do it. It's all second nature. So I was playing this game, and there was a special mechanic where you had to, I believe, hold in the right deep part of the D-pad, and then hold or click the shoulder right bumper button, and then push B. And it did some special thing that, unless you knew that, you would never figure it out on your own. And it comes into play and helps you finish the game. And if you didn't know that before, you would not be able to complete the game at all. And I remember playing through this game and going, man, this is way more difficult than I thought it would be. And then I think I looked it up, and I was like, oh, shoot. I looked up like a tutorial online or like a walkthrough or something for the part that I was stuck on. And I was like, wait, how are they doing that? And then I had to look up how they were doing that, and then come to find out it was one of the portions in the tutorial at the very beginning of the game, like a few steps after they told you how to walk or turn left or right. And I was like, that's the stuff you need to tell me, not how to turn or how to walk forward. Everyone knows how to do that. And so it got in its way. And that's what Burnout Paradise does. Paradise City gets in its own way with the tutorials. How long have I been talking about this? For quite a while, because just to show you, hey, this is how long it takes for this stuff to get going. So after you get into the through the tutorial and you fix up your car, you are now in open world mode. You are able to drive around the entirety of Paradise City, and it's kind of empty. There's kind of nothing to do there. You have to uncover events. How do you uncover them? By exploring the map. But there's not really much to explore. There's shortcuts that and gates that you can crash through, and billboards, but you will come across those during the game. So they don't serve a purpose in the open world portion, only during the events. And again, the events are just a pain in the butt to get to. You have to drive around at a slow pace. And at every intersection, you have to stop and wait for it to tell you, hey, this is a race. This is a road rage event. This is a burning lap. This is an online-only event. So once you do that, and again, you can't go fast, because if you go flying through, you quickly pass up whatever it is. Then you have to e-brake, you do a U-turn, flip around, and drive back to the intersection, which wastes like 15-20 seconds usually. And so once you get to the race, you have to stop your car in a racing game and hold the left and right triggers to kind of burn your tires, and that will start the race. But unfortunately, because of the stupid way this game is designed, is there are requirements. You have to have a car or a certain car to do this type of event. And most of the time when you are playing this game and you are driving around the city, you don't have the right car. So what do you have to do? You have to go drive all the way back to one of, I think, the 5 out of this entire open world city, 5 junkyards to go get the proper the proper car for the event, and then you have to drive all the way back to the intersection, stop again so that you don't speed past it, go slow, stop your car, spin your tires, and then you will start the event. There's no way to start the event and then pick your car, which any sane developer would do. So it just takes so much time to get into the game. What I loved about Burnout Revenge was I can start the game and be in a race within 30 seconds of the title menu, including load times. If you want to just quickly play a race before bed, you load up the game, you get to the title screen, then you have to load the game up, which, again, it's an open world game, so it takes a few seconds at least, even on an SSD on a PC. Then you are in the open world, you have to drive all the way to the event, you probably don't have the right car, and you probably forgot to change to the right car, plus you probably don't even remember what the car was that you need. So you go to the event, you wait for it to load up, and you go, you need the cavalry. So you drive all the way back to the junkyard, change out the cavalry, and then you forget where the event was, because it's one of the 79 different intersections in the game. So you go drive around and you're like, I think this is where it was. And you stumble across it finally. And then then you push start and then you're in the race. That's way longer than, like I said, like a 30-second from menu to in the game. That is probably one of the biggest reasons why I hate Burnout Paradise City. I think it's a badly designed game. I don't think the game itself is bad. I think it's terribly designed from a menu standpoint, from getting your players into the game that they want to play. I don't want to fuss around with menus. And this is another thing with that game, is if you are racing in that game and you actually manage to find yourself in an event with the right car, you're able to and again, you can't do paint jobs. You only do that at the junkyard. So if you are, hopefully you are happy with the one that you're stuck with, because you're probably not going to go find another junkyard. So once you're in the actual event and you are, let's say, a third of the way through the race and you're in first place, and you just, because of the way this game is designed, it's an open world game. With open world races, you can kind of take you can make your own way, but there's usually 1 to 2 ways with maybe 1 or 3 shortcuts that will really help you win a race. Everything else is so compact in its design of the city that you are going so fast. There's multiple different things that you have to pay attention to on the UI of the game. You have up at the top a compass with basically pointing the way to the race, or the finish line with the flag. That's all well and good, but because this is a big circular square open world game, when you are racing, just because the compass is pointing in the right direction for the flag doesn't mean that's the turns that you need to make. You don't need to keep going straight. And so you will basically be going forward, and if you are going fast, which again, you're in a race, you have to go fast, within about 5 seconds before a turn pops up, you will have street signs that will blink left or right. And you have to look up instead of paying attention to the actual track and race. You have to stop and look at the top section of the screen, figure out, first of all, are you going the right way? Second of all, what place are you in? And then third of all, which direction do you need to go? And these are like 90-degree turns most of the time. It's very rare that it's a banked turn where you turn in a direction and you just slam into oncoming traffic or a wall at a 90-degree angle because you're going too fast. And these are intersections. And most of the time they're decent size intersections, but not enough to be able to tightly drift around. You have to slow down. And also, again, you have to pay attention. Most of the time, you are so focused on the race that you forget, oh crap, there's a turn, and it makes you turn. It doesn't allow you to kind of grind around corners or anything like that. It doesn't direct you at all. It just says, well, you should probably take this turn, but it's by the time it notifies you, you're going too fast and you can't slow down. And again, you're in a heated race, battle race, where you are slamming and trying to take down opponents. And it becomes way too cumbersome. So it's just, there's so many decisions that you look at the developers and you go, why? Why did you create it like this? This could have been a perfect game if it just wasn't for these small little details that don't make sense. So, Burnout Paradise City is it's an amalgamation of what are they doing? Why did they make this boneheaded decision? And it's a bummer because, like I said, Burnout is probably one of my favorite racing series of all time. So, there's just a lot of little tiny issues that bother me to the point where I cannot recommend that Burnout Paradise City is a good game that people should play. I think if you already own it, go ahead, play it. But I will emphatically disagree with anyone who says Burnout Paradise City is the best Burnout game, because that is absolutely not true. I would say Revenge is the best Burnout game, followed closely behind with Burnout 3, Takedown. And then I guess Burnout Paradise City. It looks amazing. It looks really, really good, but there's so many issues with how that game is. Also, if you are in a race, and like I said, you're in like 3/4 of the way through and you just keep crashing, you make a bunch of mistakes, because that happens a lot in these games. I can't even tell you how many times I restarted a race, even if it was at the very beginning and I took a wrong turn or slammed into something within the first 10 seconds of the race. What would I do? I'd restart it. Like a Tony Hawk game almost. You mess up, you hit start, you hit down, and you hit A, and you instantly restart. Everyone knows this, right? Everyone's played those Tony Hawk games and has that muscle memory of, I messed up, restart. I messed up, restart. Same thing with Burnout games. If sometimes, because the rubber banding is, and again, you might miss a turn and go in the opposite direction like I just did probably about an hour ago when I was playing Burnout Paradise City. And I went the complete opposite way around the lake area because I wasn't paying attention to the turns. And it was really hard to understand which way I should turn and at what point. Because sometimes you'll get intersections that are so close together, you don't know, is it the first intersection, second, or third intersection that I need to turn at? Because it will say, oh, you're on Wharf Drive, or you need to turn on Moore Avenue. Well, you're not paying attention to the names of the road. You're going way too fast, and those are way too small of signs. It just makes it really difficult to enjoy this game. So, when you're driving and you're in a race and you crash, and maybe you crash like 3 times in a row, and you're just like, crap, you know what? I screwed up too many times. I need to restart. Guess what? You can't. There's no freaking restart option in this game. How do you not have a restart option? So you have to fail the race by finishing it. And again, most of the races take place across the entire map. So you're racing from one corner to the exact opposite corner of the map, usually. And you have to drive all the way back to that first intersection. Again, most of the time you have no idea where that was. And then restart the race. Like, come on. When people say I have like 100 hours in Burnout Paradise City, it's because it took 70 of those are driving around the city trying to find the freaking race. These races aren't that long. They're a couple minutes at most, usually, to get one from one end to the other. But again, like I said, it's finding all this stuff, which would have been solved with a menu system, like the other Burnout series, or Burnout games in that series. So you can tell I'm kind of PO'd by this game because there's so many things that I want to like about it that it makes it difficult to like because there's so many roadblocks in the way of enjoyment with this game. One other thing I'll touch on, and this is the reason why I hated this game when it came out, and when I went, ugh, this isn't a Burnout game, this sucks, is because Crash Mode's technically not in it. And I didn't even find this out until 2013, when someone was talking about Burnout, Paradise City, and I was like immediately scoffing. And they're like, no, Crash Mode's in it. It's just totally different. And they told me how to get to it. And again, could have been solved by a simple menu or a tutorial of some sort that didn't tell me how to start the car and drive and brake, but tell me how to engage with this mechanic. So with Paradise City, there's no crash mode. There's no main intersection where you get like kind of a little mini narrative or a story on how to set up a crash. There's no area where you can go to engage in crash mode. It's just everywhere, technically. What you have to do is hold it while you're driving, not in a race. When you're just out exploring, you hold the bumper buttons and you will engage crash mode or whatever they want to call it. I can't even remember what it's called because it's something stupid, I think. So your car will just immediately flip on its side and start rolling like an action movie in slow-mo. And while this is going, you're now in crash mode. And it's not trying to get an intersection at a certain amount of time. It's just see how much damage you can rack up. Which, again, sounds like, hey, this is a pretty cool, different take on crash mode. They're trying something new. That on its face sounds nice, but the way it's executed is insane. You're just flipping your car in the air like some kid picking up a car and just twirling it in the air without any consequence, without any logic or physics applied to it. And you were just rolling and rolling and rolling. And just you were literally flying your car around the map while it's tumbling with you having basically almost perfect control. So I remember a few years ago when I found out about this, I'm like, what? That sounds insane. So I went to try it out. First time I did it, I racked up 30 minutes in crash time. I basically 30 minutes of just having this car tumble around over and over, and I got some insane score, and I wasn't playing online or the leaderboards were broken or whatever, or not even on at this point. So I remember just laughing because I was so upset, so annoyed that this game, this series, this mode that I loved so much just took it and threw it in the toilet. It just makes a mockery out of what crash mode actually is. That's why Danger Zone 1 and 2, when those came out, I was so excited, but they were so stale, so sterile, so not full of life that I was kind of bummed out about it. So all in all, Burnout Paradise City, it just has so many little things here and there that were tweaked too much. You could have made a great Burnout game that was open world as long as you were able to access the races from a menu, as long as you were able to restart, as long as crash mode had physics applied to it and not just some, have fun for the next 30 minutes having this car just tumble out of control, but you have perfect control and you can bounce it on the road over and over and over again. It's not Crash Breaker. You just have this stuff, these abilities, like your car is basically Superman. And it just, every single little piece of it makes it just not a fun experience. It's boring. It takes forever to get into. When you're playing it, you're having fun, kind of. But again, you're going to mess up so many times. You're going to be so pissed off you can't restart a race. You're going to just stop playing it and go back to an older Burnout game where they had all that stuff right there for you. You can get into the game. I'm not big on games with no narrative. I love story mode, but there is a certain time or place where don't give me a 40-minute cutscene at the very beginning of the game that I have no idea about. Build the world around within the game while I'm playing, not the 40 minutes before I even am able to do a button input. So, I get really passionate about the Burnout series, and especially with Burnout Paradise, because I had such, not even high hopes. I wasn't like hyped over this game. I was excited about it because they already proved themselves over and over and over again. Criterion made so many good Burnout games. I was like, well, surely this one can't be terrible. It can't be one of the worst in the series. And it totally was. Because they took out everything that made a Burnout game fun, and they replaced it or tweaked it somehow to make it not fun. And even the soundtrack. The soundtrack is decent. I don't hate all the songs on it. It got a little too poppy for my taste, especially back in the day, but replaying the game and hearing some of these songs, most of them I'm pretty cool with. There is one that I absolutely hate. It's Faith by Epic No More. I absolutely hate that song. It's partly because of Rock Band, because I've had to play it so many times. I think the lyrics are dumb as well. But there is one song in particular that, for whatever reason, even though I'm not a punk pop type person, even though I think the song lyrics are kind of dumb, it's a dumb that I can get behind. It's a dumb that I still enjoy for the most part. So I'm going to play you a track from the soundtrack of Burnout Paradise City that is not Paradise City by Guns N' Roses, because that would, again, be way too cliched, exactly like what the game did. So I'm going to play a song by a band called Maxine, and it's called Block Out the World. And like I said, the lyrics are dumb. This basically sounds like it was written by a 16-year-old. But for whatever reason, I got really into this song. I really enjoy this song. It's very catchy. And even though the lyrics are dumb, you can totally relate to it sometimes. Sometimes you just want to put headphones on and just not listen to anyone else. So without further ado, this is Maxine with Block Out the World.
There's a clash of information between my ears. I shut off my eyes in hopes it disappears. You're jamming ideas down my throat, so I swallow the belief that we're on some sinking roads. So I'm block out the world with headphones on. It's the only thing I can do, and I don't want to talk to no one. Block out the world with headphones on. It's my only escape. I'm glued to you and trust, but I can't help but feel that what you say is not. It's not what's real. I want to build a case, but the facts aren't straight. And if I think you're guilty, I won't participate. So I'm block out the world with headphones on. It's the only thing I can do, and I don't want to talk to no one. Block out the world with headphones on. It's my only escape. I'm block out the world with headphones on. It's the only thing that works when I don't want to talk to no one. Block out the world with headphones on, 'cause I don't understand. Block out the radio, block out the TV show, block out these visions that trouble me so. I feel sick again, my blood is running thin, digesting too much of your negative information. Block out the radio, block out the TV show, block out these visions that trouble me so. I feel sick again, my blood is running thin, digesting too much of your negative information. Block out the world, block out the world. Block out the world. Oh, oh, oh. I block out the world with headphones on. It's the only thing I can do, and I don't want to talk to no one. Block out the world with headphones on. It's my only escape. I block out the world with headphones on. It's the only thing that works when I
The last game I'm going to be talking about is Outrun in the arcades. This game is special to me for several different reasons. One, it's probably my fondest memory of playing video games with my grandma, or one of them anyways. The second is that it was probably one of the first arcade ports that I ever played on a Sega Genesis. And then it's just a classic game, especially for a racing game. It's the game that I kind of hold as the gold standard for arcade-style racing. The reason is because with Outrun, you get a pure experience. There's nothing more than you racing a clock. All you are doing is trying to drive as fast as possible to get to the checkpoint without losing. In Outrun, basically you are driving a Ferrari, and it's actually licensed Ferrari, and you got your girlfriend and you're in a Ferrari, and you're just driving. And the soundtrack is absolutely incredible. There's several different songs you can actually choose to listen to. And then you just drive and try to avoid traffic and try to drive within the lanes and not crash on the palm trees or whatever. The aesthetic is amazing, even from the get-go. You're at a starting line, a guy waves a flag, and you're off. And you're in the middle of a beach area. And the colors are just vivid. They pop a lot, which is really cool because not a lot of games back then had a lot of color, especially racing games. You just had very few grays for the pavement and maybe some green grass, and that's about it. You weren't ever driving by beaches, on the beachfront and stuff like this. And so it makes that game just pop, and it has its own unique style and feel to it, which is incredible. The sense of speed is actually pretty cool too, because you actually get a little bit of manual transmission, right? Yeah. You get a little bit of manual transmission. You have the low gears and the high gears, and you get to switch between them. And it creates just a little bit more of a mechanic to make it not just hold A or hold B, and then that's all you do. So this game is it's unique, especially at the time. I believe it came out in 1989. And there wasn't a lot of arcade games like this, racing games, where the colors are popping so much. The music is so in your face, making you feel like you are taking a cruise down the street. You are on the highway, the wind is blowing in your hair. It's an incredible feeling. You just get a big smile on your face whenever you play this game. Or I do anyways. And what's also really cool is there's branching paths for this game. It's not just the set same course every single time you play. You can choose where you want to go. At the end of every section, you get to choose the road forks, and you get to choose left or right. Left is always going to be the easier path with less obstacles, less cars in the road, not as many crazy sharp turns and things like that. And so I always opted for the left because this game is hard. It's difficult to finish in first place. So you get in your car, you start driving, you get to the end of each section, and each section changes too. At the very beginning, you start out at beach, and it's supposed to be representative of the US, I guess, from a Japanese developer standpoint in the late 80s. So you start out at a beach, but then you move on to mountains or cities. You go to, I think you drive on the Great Wall of China. I think that might be actually in the sequel. But you just drive on all these different interesting settings and landmarks across the world in US. And it's really cool. The right side is always a lot harder, and when you choose it for the first time, this game requires you to kind of memorize a lot, which always bummed me out. That's why I never was very good at it when I was younger, is I never memorized everything. I just thought, hey, I'm playing a game. So you would go and the tracks would be twisting and turning. The frame rate is incredible. And what's really cool too is with the addition of newer technology like the RetroArch emulator or front end, the LibRetro team has actually kind of reverse engineered this game a little bit and created its own core, is what they call it. And it's basically the engine to run the game, basically. And you actually have a lot more options than you were ever able to in either the console versions or the arcade versions. With this core, and it's called Cannonball. Why, I don't know. I'm sure it's some, insider information on that game, but it's called the Cannonball core. And basically, you take the ROM file from the arcade version, unpack it, put it into this ROM core, and you are given 60 frames per second, widescreen mode, and a bunch of other crazy stuff. Which is really cool. You get to experience this game like it was meant to be played. And playing with the RetroArch Cannonball core is the prime way to play this game. It is the literal best way to play Outrun, the original Outrun anyways. And so it's just an incredible experience, and I'm sure most people have played it by now, but if you haven't, go pick up Outrun. It is a blast from the past. It's something that isn't made anymore. And there are a lot of games that have tried to recreate the Outrun experience. There have been multiple games within the last 4 or 5 years at least, several on Steam. One I kickstarted even, where it tries and has that feel, but nothing comes close to Outrun. It is a perfect arcade experience. You're in and you're out. You're racing. When you get a game over, you input your name on the high score screen if you get a high score, and that's it. There's not much to the game, but what there is super fun. It is high quality, classic old school Sega arcade racing style. And so I encourage everyone to go check that out. If you haven't played Outrun in a while, go pick it back up. It's a rad game. There was also a couple sequels to Outrun. There was Outrunners, Outrun 20 something. I can't remember what it was, but it was definitely a different game. You Outrun Europa on the Game Gear. And then on the original Xbox, they came out with Outrun 2. And oh my gosh, this game takes everything that was classic about the original Outrun game and gives it, 3D models, higher quality sound and music, full orchestrated music, and a lot of different modes too. There was a heart attack mode where you and your girlfriend are driving and you basically have to kind of scare her. I can't remember exactly, or impress her. That's what it was, where you try and impress her by all the different various racing styles that you can do, drifting and things like that. And she will just lose her mind and hearts will be popping off of her head, and just driving while your girlfriend is just going, "Oh my gosh, I love you. I love you. I love you. Oh, you're doing amazing." It's really cool. It's a fun mode that just gave it a little bit more to do in that game. There's a lot more car models that you can unlock too. Again, all licensed by Ferrari. And then I think they did it on PSN and Xbox 360 Live Arcade, where they had an online version where you could race online and do all this stuff online. I think it was a little bit watered down. And then they also released Outrun 2 2006, Coast to Coast. And that, you can look up all the different variations and stuff like that. I haven't had it memorized, but there's variations. There's some stuff that's new in that version, some stuff that was taken out, and blah, blah, blah. But they're really cool sequels to this game that don't exist anymore. They Outrun lost the license for having Ferrari in the game, so they had to stop selling it on the online stores. So you can't, if you never bought it, you can't even buy it now, even if you wanted to. The only way to play those games is to either buy the original Xbox or PS2 copy of Outrun 2, or go and download a copy of an emulator for those newer systems, PS3 and 360, and play it that way, and play the live or PSN version of those games, which you can. And it runs absolutely fine if you have a decent computer, which is cool too. So with that, I'm kind of probably finished talking about racing games for a little bit, but I will do an episode with San Francisco Rush, because I do want to get really deep into that series, and that's going to require me hanging out and playing some of those series again to relive those moments, which is rad for me. But I'm going to leave you with one of my favorite video game soundtracks of all time. One of my favorite video game songs that I've always loved. Even when I was 9 years old, at least, maybe even a little bit younger. I remember renting Outrun, and for the Sega Genesis, my parents took me to Blockbuster, and I rented Outrun because I knew it was the arcade version. It was Outrun, but I could play it at home and not have to spend several $100 practically to try and beat that game. I could just rent it for $5. So I went home and I rented it and played it. And then my grandma came over, and man, my grandma was rad. She was super cool about video games. She even tried a couple. And one of the games that she tried while I rented Outrun, she sat down next to me and she was like, "Oh, what's this game?" I'm like, "Oh man, Grandma, it's so cool. You're this car and you're driving, and when you crash, the car flips over and the people fly out, but they're okay. And oh, it's so cool. You're racing on the beach." And my grandma, she was just smiling, going, "Oh, that's really cool." And she was like, "Oh, can I play?" And I was like, "Yeah." So I handed her the controller, and I proceeded to watch my grandma attempt to play Outrun. She didn't do very well. She didn't even get to the first checkpoint, but she did it, and she had a smile on her face, and it's something that has always stuck with me. So I'm going to play Passing Breeze, which is it can be a very long song, and the song can get a little monotonous at a certain point, but then it kicks into this melody almost of fast pitch or fast coming notes, and these notes hit you so fast and so hard, and it's such a cool song. So I'll leave you guys with Passing Breeze, and hopefully you guys enjoyed me rambling on for almost over an hour about racing games, and I will see you next time.